Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I sent an email out to my constituents back toward the end of summer talking about the proposed wolf tax increases and asking them to email me to share their stories with me if the budget was going to impact, the budget impasse was actually impacting their lives, and also shared with them that if it wasn't currently impacting their lives, it certainly would if the governor had his way and we increased taxes by $4.7 billion this year. Well, as a result of that email, I heard from virtually nobody that was going to be impacted currently by the impasse, but I've heard from a lot of people that will be impacted if this tax increase would be passed, just as they would have been impacted if the $4.7 billion tax increase would have been passed. So I think everybody is glad that the governor has changed from his first tax increase proposal to a second tax increase proposal to now a third tax increase proposal, and he keeps whittling that down as anybody might do in a negotiation. But my constituents are still, as one writes here, troubled by the continuing state budget impasse. And I wanted to share a little bit of the content of a few of the emails that I'd received from some of my constituents, Mr. Speaker, regarding this tax increase. And this constituent writes, like many of your constituents, I'm troubled by the continuing state budget impasse. Citizens like me are growing weary of the constant attacks and the resulting uncertainty that comes from this, quote, my way or the highway approach to governing. At the heart of the problem is Governor Wolf's seemingly immovable position that Pennsylvania citizens and businesses must endure an additional $5 billion in new taxes. Now, of course, this is referencing what we were looking at last week and not necessarily today. They continue later in the email, at a time when most other states around us are pursuing new ways to grow jobs and businesses, all we are talking about is growing the size of state government and penalizing job creators. Natural gas businesses have been cutting jobs all year, and additional taxes will only result in more Pennsylvanians out of work. Please do the right thing for your constituents and reject these crushing new taxes, and instead look for ways for us to grow jobs, opportunities, and our economy. Another constituent writes, please do not vote for Governor Wolf's latest budget proposal. Even though it is smaller than the first scheme, it will also stifle job growth. We must hold the line on these tax proposals for the good of all the citizens of Pennsylvania. Thank you. Another constituent writes, I'm a resident of Adams Township in Butler County and work as an electrical engineer in the gas industry. Please vote against the severance tax proposed by the governor and other tax increases. My company recently had layoffs, and I'm fortunate to still be working. I am the main provider for my family and have 3 children to support. I started my career in the steel industry 25 years ago. Over the years, I've seen so many jobs and industries fade away and never return. Another constituent writes, Governor Wolf has vetoed a responsible budget that increased education spending without raising taxes on hardworking Pennsylvanians. Pennsylvania's next budget must protect taxpayers by limiting spending growth to the rate of inflation, by eliminating corporate welfare, prioritizing spending, and eliminating prevailing wage mandates. The General Assembly can balance the budget without further burdening Pennsylvania families. We have to live within our means, and so should our government. And yet another constituent writes to me, just this morning I believe I received this one, actually this afternoon. I've lived in Cranberry Township for over 5 years working in the natural gas industry. Our industry is going through a significant downturn, and many of my friends and coworkers are losing their jobs. Many of them are being forced to leave Pennsylvania to find oil and gas work elsewhere. Please do not pass the severance tax that will hurt our industry even more and result in the loss of more jobs and good people from this state. And then in response to a message that I put up just this morning while we were sitting here debating this related to the 16% increase in the state income tax, one respondent on Facebook wrote that they wish they could move to another state if this goes through. Another constituent of mine from Adams Township in Butler County wrote, that if this goes through, this will be the catalyst for him to move to Texas. So we see there's a lot of our constituents that, if this were to actually become law and their taxes would be increased, would vote with their feet and would leave Pennsylvania in search of prosperity elsewhere as taxes go up in Pennsylvania. Mr. Speaker, there was some comments made earlier by, I believe, the Democratic whip related to support of this Markozik amendment today. And he'd mentioned that the governor has compromised because I think he said it was about 27 or 28% of what the governor's original tax increase proposal was, that this tax increase was about 28, 27% of that. Our calculations put it more at around 30%, but either way, 27, 28, 30. He's making the claim that this is compromise. You should embrace this, you Republicans on the other side of the aisle, and some of you, his fellow Democrats that may not vote for this today, because this is a compromise. Well, Mr. Speaker, when one side says we're not for increasing taxes but want to deal responsibly with the budget, live within our means, as every working family, as every working taxpayer has to do, and the other side says we want to spend more so we need to tax more, and then they make the claim that a compromise is for us to increase taxes not quite as much as they originally proposed. That's not compromise, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would liken that to you walking down the street, or any one of you walking down the street in the evening, and you run into someone out in the street that stops you at gunpoint and by force demands that you give them all the money you have in your pockets. And when you say to that individual, I can't give you the money that I have in my pockets. My mortgage is due. My daughter needs new shoes. My son needs a new winter coat. I have to put food on the table for tonight's dinner. And that thug with a gun says to you, okay, then give me half the money you have in your pockets. We will compromise. Mr. Speaker, no one in their right mind would say that theft on the street would be a compromise. That person holding you hostage at gunpoint until you give up the wealth in your pockets, no one would say that was a compromise when he was demanding from you something that you can't afford to give. By force, he's demanding it of you. And Mr. Speaker, that's exactly what this governor has done, because government is force. The governor has utilized his position to hold the state hostage for over 3 months, to hold the vendors of this that sell to this state for the last 3 months and have provided services, to hold them hostage to the ones that haven't been paid. We gave him an opportunity to meet our fiscal obligations and pay the bills for the last 3 months on money that's already been spent, and he vetoed it, Mr. Speaker. And now he's coming forth with a third tax increase proposal and holding Pennsylvanians hostage to his unreasonable demand to strip away more of their wealth that they're creating for the benefit of themselves and their family. Mr. Speaker, this is no more a compromise than a thug on the street telling you at gunpoint, give me the money in your pockets.